Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Hope you're all well. You've had a good week. Oh, what am I doing with my mouse? We don't have our nice intro this morning, so you'll just have to put up with us
What would
appearing
be a
in
show
front of your
without technical
screens.
issues?
I don't think we've had one show without technical issues. Hey Enzo, nice to see everybody. Claire's around, Gavin's around. Lots of people around. Oh my goodness. Hang on, let me have a quick look. All these people jumped on in like the last second. Jan. Oh, Jan's in Colorado. Love Colorado. Hey, Jan. Okay, so we'll crack on. This morning we wanted to talk about the intricacies and nuances of ET or perceived ET contact. Everybody assumes the world is a very black and white place, but we all know really it's not. There's lots of shades of grey in between. And so we want to talk about them. It's something we do with most of our day, isn't it? We are generally working with people all day in individual appointments or as little groups, working through their experiences, trying to unpick it all. Sometimes an experience this person may have had from childhood and they're in their 50s or 60s now, or sometimes it can be, regular ongoing contact through their entire life, or contact that's only just started. Whatever it is, we try to help them understand it using our own experience, and obviously we have access to the Zetas through you, which is really helpful as well when things get complicated. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay, so what we've done is we have categorized all the different contact scenarios that we could think of into kind of six loose sections. I'll just tell you what they are now. So we're going to use undefined phenomena. I hate that word, phenomena. CE5. We're going to talk about orbs. We're going to talk about dream contact. We're going to talk about astral abduction, stroke visitation. And then we're going to talk about classical physical abduction scenarios. So, in every aspect there, obviously it's multifaceted, and that's where we want to start from.
Well, see, this is the problem. When you're trying to work out what's going on around you, if you don't have an understanding of the descriptions of what's possible, then you'll try to categorize things, either it's this or I don't know. So we'll just go through the list of things.
Yeah.
And at least that way, when things are happening with people, they can go, well, it's possible that it could be this and that, because it can be multiple things as well.
That's right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, housekeeping. That's what there was something I was thinking, housekeeping. If you have a question about any of what we talk about, feel free to jump in with that in the chat box. But if you can just use caps lock so I can see it, because my eyes are terrible and the screen's like over there somewhere and I can't reach it. So if you can use caps lock, that would be really, really great. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to start with undefined phenomena. So I'll just let you go.
Well, no, it's more about, with the undefined phenomena, like you've got ET phenomena, spirit activity, uncontrolled telekinesis, and undeveloped mediumships and abilities. So first thing that happens is people contact us and go, it sounds like somebody's throwing stones against the window of my house, or the drawers are flying in and out, or there's knocking on the walls. We spend time talking to people and finding out if it's generational, were the mediums generational mediums as well. How long has this phenomenon been occurring? And what are the other associated things that are happening with that person? Because it's not just one thing. That's just what they're focused on at that point. And what we find generally is that a lot of people are actually undeveloped mediums, and the energy that they have with them has no directed path or clear path for direction. And because of that, it manifests in other ways around them.
Can I explain that a little bit,
Yeah,
bit more for anyone that doesn't know too much about how a medium works? Not a psychic and not a channeler. So working with mediumship is very different. You're actually working with spirit beings that are moving into your etheric field, and in whatever way you're working with them in that way. So
what's an etheric field?
Your energy body. Thank you. But when we say like there's an undeveloped medium, so this is somebody with all that energy potential within them, and they've got spirit people probably around them kind of encouraging them to develop and saying, come on, sit in that cabinet or sit in that red light room, chair, whatever environment.
You mean like a cocktail cabinet? Or...
All right, so physical mediums, they generally use a cabinet. A cabinet is a small enclosed space in which they sit, which helps to coalesce the energy. And when you have a physical medium producing ectoplasm, which is life force, and yeah, that does actually really happen. That energy gets contained into that cabinet and brought out into the room after many, many, potentially decades of development. It doesn't ever happen straight away. And if it does, you might want to be asking questions about that. But back to the point, if you have somebody who has all that potential, and let's say they get to around their 40s and they haven't done anything with it, they're like a coiled spring. And that coiled spring can only stay coiled for so long. And that's quite often when people start experiencing electrical disturbances around their house, like little stones, or someone's tapping their window all night long.
It doesn't mean that it's always that. It could be a bird.
Could be a bird, but if there's no logical, rational explanation,
well, it could be an owl outside.
An owl, like knocking with his little foot,
tapping on your window.
Yeah, but you kind of get the idea. So where it might seem like a spirit person might be, tapping on your wall and trying to communicate, or flashing the lights, or doing crazy stuff with a TV. It could be so many other different things as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, like sometimes pipes knock in walls, and people have said to me, "Oh, I've got spirits," and you go and turn the taps on, and next thing the pipes are banging on the walls, and you go, "No, there's no spirits here."
I tell you one thing we left off, and that's like when you kind of get those waves of astral stuff coming through. Remember?
Yeah. So the fabric.
And it comes through in like denser.
We'll talk about that after. So the first category that we'll talk about, because we sort of need to try to define the conversation, that's the first thing, is CE5. Now, a lot of people, they know what CE5 is. They're going outside, they're meditating in groups, and they're looking up and they're seeing a light in the sky. And, of course, if it's not SpaceX or something else, Starlink flying past, there could be a response, a flash of light in the sky. And the thing is that, who can really say what that is? That's the real issue. Like when satellites go past the curvature of the Earth, because the light from the sun's coming past, a satellite can flash up and then flash off, and then flash up and flash off, depending on where it's moving around the arc of the planet. That's the first thing. The next thing is that the consciousness phenomenon means that you can actually ask for a craft and see a flash of light in the sky. It's not a craft. It's your own consciousness being reflected back to you. If you've got a group of people that are working together in consciousness and meditation, they have extreme capacity to create phenomenon as well. And so, yes, of course, it can be craft. But are craft just sitting out there waiting for you to come outside and give you a sign that they exist? Probably not. That's the first thing. But anyway. So the next one is.
What about is there a way we could verify if it was say you've got a pulsing light in the sky that you've ruled out any of the obvious. What can you do to define whether it's
don't you think it's
consciousness or ET?
Don't you think it's obvious that if you walk outside and you say, are there any craft out there, and a big light flashes up, the next question from your mouth or mind should be, come in closer.
Yeah.
Come in so close that we can
actually
see you.
Yeah.
And that would be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
But why people continue to believe that lights up there that are, light years away a craft
Mm.
and then not ask them to come close is just, I don't understand.
Humans are easily amused.
Well, you'd think that if you have contact, that you should evidence that contact by getting them to come closer.
Yeah.
They will do it if it's an actual craft. They'll come closer.
Yeah.
And I know
that's the
I know for
difference.
some people the craft have come close. They have for us.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
have for others as well.
Yeah.
They're looking for an opportunity to do that. It's up to you whether you want to play with the lights in the sky or not, really. In the end, it doesn't matter.
Lights in the sky are great, and we've had lights, we've had the pulsing and the flashing, and they are lovely, but I certainly wouldn't devote my entire meditative practice or focus all my attention on wanting that when you can actually have so much more. We've just got a question.
Yeah,
do we want to segue just to this quickly before we move on?
Well, spirit realms of technology, because humans are an introduced species. The planet's, I don't know, 10, 14 billion years old. We're not these humans that are here currently aren't the first human species to exist. Spirits, consciousness from another race. So basically, everybody on this planet's an extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
And so, spirits, and we work with spirits all the time. Spirits sit in spirit realm and cycle in and out of spirit realm into the physical. And humans are an introduced species to the planet, and specifically by the Anunnaki as well.
Yeah.
Right. So developing mediums often report lights and inside and outside. So when we talk about CE5, you can also have lights inside your house. And this is where we start to talk about orbs. So orbs can be, this is the biggest category of things that it can be. So orbs generally are, if it's a spirit person, then it's a manifestation of a spirit person coming from spirit fabric into physical fabric. And then there's an orb and it sits there, and it's a manifestation. If it's an extraterrestrial orb, and the reason that extraterrestrials use orbs is because they know that they're innocuous and that people aren't afraid of orbs. The actual orbs themselves can be scanning technology, or they can also be viewing technology. So that's another thing. So when you see an orb, and it may be three-dimensional, like a ball, or it could be a flat disc, or even a light, it's always performing some function. It's not just floating through the house, sort of doing nothing. It's either a spirit person materializing in some sort of etheric form, or it's extraterrestrial technology.
Yeah.
Another thing that can be is astral activity, egregores, servitors, and orbs can actually even be a representation of somebody in the astral who's astral traveling as well. And also, once again, unfortunately, orbs can also be a reflection of your own consciousness, because you're surrounded by what's called the phenomenon, and the phenomenon is a reflection of what takes place in consciousness. And so we can see straight up that just categorizing and going, oh, I've got ET contact because I've seen an orb in my house, that's actually not what's happening. Generally not what's happening anyway. And that's the problem. People are jumping to conclusions far too fast, and it's causing the amount of experiences, the volume of experiences, to expand exponentially. I'm seeing an orb, it must mean that I'm being abducted. Well, the thing is that people need to understand that maybe you need to think a little bit more about what is possible. Is there any screen memories associated with it? What type of screen memories are associated with it? What type of fabric is being used around you? And I don't mean fabric as in clothing. I mean energetic fabric as well. What type of phenomenon is actually manifesting around you? Is it manifesting for anybody else in the house? Has somebody else seen this take place as well?
Yeah, and what's been going on in the house? Who lived in the house? Who died in the house? Where have you been? In terms of spirit activity.
What's the question from David?
Oh,
how many ETs could be a real threat to the people of the earth.
Then he clarifies with
Good, okay.
what type of ET
could be a real threat to the earth. I think that the problem with all of this threats from extraterrestrials, for me, is a bit of a misnomer. And the reason is because if you're an advanced civilization, you've gone through a lot of the growth pains yourself, and you're watching this species specifically going through their growth. And you're seeing that they have the capacity to develop logically and consciously. A race could easily wipe out a species. It's no problem to do that. I mean, even humans are trying to wipe themselves out all over the place. So the thing is that I don't believe that there are races, even though if they could wipe out a species, they probably won't, because all they were doing is watching what we're doing to ourselves. I mean, if you're visiting this planet and you're in craft and you're looking down and you're seeing what's going on this planet, with all the resource use, the overpopulation, all of the wars, you're not worried yourself about this species. You're worried about them for them. Are they going to be able to actually move through that?
Claire, I can see your question. It's in caps lock. Thank you. I can read that.
Right.
Can you give me an example of what you mean? So it's not a dream, it's not astral, and it's not an abduction.
We're definitely going to get to that category.
But in the meantime, give us an example of what you mean.
Yeah.
And hang on, what's this? There's something else in caps locks underneath. 2 of us saw yellow orbs after prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's exactly what I'm saying. 2 people in agreement together, and of course, then there's an orb that appears. And because you're a being of consciousness, before you were born, you were somewhere, you came into the physical and manifested as a physical form. You're still a being of consciousness, but you're playing the game of matter and materialism. And because of that, you're believing in the construct around you. You know, we've all seen the movie The Matrix. It's like we're in a construct. And because we're in a construct, that construct provides us with specific rules or specific ideas. And because of that, when we try to understand what's going on around us, all we're ever given back is a narrative. And the same thing applies with extraterrestrial contact. We're given a narrative. We can go into, sort of into that a bit more, I guess.
Yeah, we'll do that when we
get to that category. We'll do that. Okay.
We're trying to break it up. I mean, one thing to say about if you're actually having ET contact and you've got some degree of awareness of it is you can have every aspect of what we're talking about. Just because we're talking about them in boxes doesn't mean that that's how it actually happens. But it's just for the sake of conversational purposes. We're not saying you can either have one or the other, and if you have that, you can't have that or anything like that. So, yeah. I guess we're just trying to put some sort of sensible, common sense conversation out there. For the person who has, for the first time, just seen a light in the sky. If you go to the internet now and you look at that, well, that's it. You've been abducted by aliens. No, probably not.
Well, the thing is I feel sorry.
Look at the bigger
feel
picture.
Sorry for spirit people.
Yeah, what about
spirit people love you, and they're your loved ones, and they're your guides, and so they're doing everything they can to manifest themselves to you, so to prove to you that life exists after life.
Yeah.
And straight away people go, look, there's an alien, and they're going, oh no, it's not an alien, it's me, it's your mum. And so, or your grandparent.
Yeah, not understanding that not all spirit people can show themselves exactly as they used to look. Sometimes you will only see them as a distortion. Sometimes they can only show as an orb or an energy fuzz, and nothing is black and white. And I think that's the problem I see with the information available for new experiences online, is that there isn't, it's like it's lost this common sense, and it's lost the breadth of the phenomena of what it could be. There's so many different things going on.
I'll give you an example. So we're in the UK and we're in a pub, and what was the name of that pub? The Crown and Anchor.
The Crown and Anchor.
The Crown and Anchor.
Yeah, and if anybody from the Crown and Anchor is watching, hi, because I know you said you would.
Yeah. And we're just sitting in there, and next thing, this spirit person just walked straight past. And then so I got up and I moved tables because didn't want to be on the way, and they followed me to the table. So I then went and got the staff and said, look, there's spirits in this place.
Yeah.
They said, you stay right here. They went and got other staff and said, now, can you repeat what you just said?
Yeah. And they'd all been seeing the same
They'd
stuff.
all been seeing the same spirits, but they'd been seeing them differently, like some as orbs, some as full form apparitions, these things. And it turned out when we did some historical record work on the place, that it was used as a holding ground.
Holding place.
Yeah, as a holding place, unfortunately.
For people who were about to get hanged.
For people to be hung.
Not very nice.
So, a person that went in there and all they ever thought was say ghosts, right? Ghosts. They would say that they were ghosts, but these actually were not ghosts. They were spirit people.
And the difference is for people that don't know.
And if you don't know the difference is that ghost is like a replay of an image.
Like an energetic record player on repeat.
Whereas a spirit person is actually cognizant and able to communicate.
Just like you, me, and you, just without the physical body. It's really that simple.
Yeah. And this is why we're just saying, if you understand this and what we're saying, then when something happens, you go, well, okay, look, this could be 35 different things.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at that. Let's see if we can get some evidence, maybe get in a medium to have a look at that and, see what's really going on, because that's very important.
Just got a question here. In my dreams, do I sometimes see myself's life experience on another parallel universe?
That's possible. Yeah, absolutely. It's
pretty much anything's possible.
Anything's possible, but the thing is because you are an infinite being of consciousness living on multiple timelines in an asynchronous environment, then of course that's why people experience deja vu, because they come in contact with themselves in a few future seconds. That's probably a little bit complicated, but anyway. The next category is dream contact.
Yeah, hang on.
Hang on.
I'm just pausing you. Thoughts on... Oh, that's the quantum...
healing technology.
Hypnosis?
Is it?
I don't know. I'm not very good with the
Is QHHT the...
quantum hypnosis...
therapy
stuff. I don't know. Give us the long version. We'll come back to it.
What that means to you, what that means to somebody else.
Yeah. Go on, unpause.
Unpause, okay. Bink. Dream contact, boy, this is a big area. So you go to sleep and you have a dream and it's just a dream. And then you go to sleep and you have a dream and it's an influenced dream. And the reason that the extraterrestrials influence people in their dream state is because there's a physical toll that a physical body will pay to a person who is cognitive and conscious in real contact. So a lot of the contact that takes place with people that are asleep is so that they are actually unharmed. That's the first thing.
But if we're talking about contact from extraterrestrials.
Contact from extraterrestrials. Spirit people also contact you when you're asleep as well. Yeah. And they talk to you in either imagery or they can speak to you if they want to. Yeah. You then have the lucid dream where you can actually, you're cognizant in your dream state and you can talk to them because you know that it's a dream state as well. Then, of course, we have in the dream states where we're moving into a place that's classed as astral visitation as well. But one thing that I wanted to say in regards to extraterrestrial contact when you're asleep is it'll be a narrative that you're given. Things like you'll be learning to fly or you can fly. And if you can fly, you'll be flying somewhere. There's another one. The other one is that if you try to leave planet, you may find that there's wires above you or a net. So every time you try to move through the net, that the net will move over the top of you, or the wires or the telegraph wires or the electrical wires will move over the top of you. That's actually a common phenomenon as well. All right. Another thing is that people have is when they're being contacted is imagery of craft. Yeah. And they will be running after the craft or they'll be on craft. But what's associated with it when they wake up is an absolute deep sadness that and these are screen memories that people are being given.
Yeah.
You may be actually doing something completely different while you're having that dream. That's another different area as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then we move into the astral.
I was just going to say, talking about one category actually we haven't put on there is spirit people pretending to be extraterrestrial. We need to talk about that. We need to talk about that. So let's remember to do that. And hang on, there was.
Well, why don't you just talk about it?
Hang on, can we just let me get this question. I
Dolores,
can just about see it. QHH Dolores Cannon. We don't know anything about Dolores.
No, I don't know anything about it. And let's be honest, okay.
But regression work is
regression work. If you go have a look at MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, they've got a team of psychologists that work with it, and Kathleen Martin also was the international director of MUFON. And we've had discussions with Kathleen about this, and it's common knowledge that when people actually are in regression, that the subconscious mind also can make up answers to stories as well.
Yeah.
And so would I say, in my opinion, that a person could 100% believe what their mind was telling them? No.
When we spoke to Kathleen Martin, because she's a friend of Paul, who's known Paul for a very long time, she does this herself, and I believe she used to do it with MUFON. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
And she said they had a very strict
protocols
with people requesting regression work. They'd have to have multiple other things going on. There's a question here from Justin. Hey, Justin.
Hey, Justin.
I had a dream 6 months ago after my father passed away, and in the dream I spent
good part of the day with him. He looked great. Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Spirit people, we had this discussion the other day. A lot of spirit people, when they come, they look really good.
Yeah.
And they don't look the way they did when they passed over.
That's right. They work out that they don't need to look like that.
Hey, if you can look 35, why not? You know, that's why wouldn't you?
Yeah. My nan came to me in a dream, and it was the only time I can be absolutely sure that it was a spirit person and not just me dreaming. And it was sort of a really random dream. I was snowboarding in Colorado in my dream, for the person in Colorado. And my nan just suddenly, slowly materialized into the scene from the feet up, like an electrical distortion. Her form built. And she was just stood there in her normal clothes, like she'd been in the garden in this snowscape by the chairlift going up. And she said a whole load of stuff to me, and I couldn't remember it the day after. But I was so emotionally impressed by that. It
would affect you.
Oh God, yeah, it was. Yeah.
Anyway. Well, here's the other thing: if a person's ever been to a physical medium. In the past, there's been physical mediums that using ectoplasm, the spirit person can physically materialize in front of people. Yeah. Floating heads, floating hands, lots of things.
Look up the mediumship of Bill Meadows if you want to read about that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
I've sat with Bill 3 or 4 times before he retired from mediumship quite recently, and his mediumship was amazing.
Yeah,
absolutely. I could speak for an hour about that.
Well, this is the thing, like in the past, these mediums, Leslie Flint, John Campbell Sloan, Helen Duncan, these people had phenomenon around them. There was no extraterrestrials, but the phenomenon mimicked what people would now say is extraterrestrial contact. And the thing is that spiritualism and ectoplasmic mediumship has been around for thousands of years.
Yeah. But getting back to the reason why I mentioned spirits pretending to be ET, it happens all the time. Oh my goodness. We've been shocked by the amount of spirit people having a bit of a jolly.
Yeah, they love it, don't they?
Oh no, it's terrible. Look, people need to realize that spirits were people, just like Paul, just like me, just like you watching. And when you pass over, the only thing that happens is you lose your physical body. You retain everything about yourself. So if you have a bit of a jokey sense of humor, maybe you like to play practical jokes on people, pranks, that's not going to change. And we have seen time and time and time again different races pretending, spirit people pretending to be extraterrestrial, and the way round.
Yeah.
Now I've accidentally slipped and said that, but
Yeah.
reptilians are notorious for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, spirit people do pretend to be ET, and they sit there and
tell you
say the most incredible stuff. And
they tell you everything you want to hear.
Yeah.
And if you can't see a spirit or know that it's a spirit,
Yeah.
you'd actually think,
wow,
what? And here's the classic, it's always, hello, beloved, how are you?
Oh, yeah.
La, la, la. And it's more
Greetings,
like greetings
humans.
from the
Like,
16th dimension or something.
Yeah.
And people just believe it. And
They
the
do.
spirits
They never
laugh.
question it.
They think it's so funny.
Please question
Yeah.
everything that you watch and see. Oh my goodness. Common sense. That's where it's all at. There's just a question from Jan. Will a spirit person or an ET visitor try to materialize again in the future if the first visit didn't go well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is a conversation we had last night, because obviously we're mediums and we get spirits coming and going. And if a spirit person, when they pass over, they've never actually tried to contact the living. So the first time that they try to contact the living, they may not be successful. But if they can work out how to do it, it's as if they need to practice. And so as they keep coming back, it may be that they see that you're going to a medium, so they'll know the medium will have a better chance of some level of communication with the spirit person. And then what takes place is the spirit can give a message. But if there's no medium around, then they're going to spend a lot of time trying to get your attention. And that's why we say to people, if you are seeing something and it's related to spirit people, you should acknowledge it. You should say, I can see that, or I can feel that cold breeze, or whatever. That it's different if it's winter and the windows are open. Then it's just what it is. It's cold outside. Okay.
David, class 1 ET. I don't know what that means.
David, would you like to just
tell us
what class 1 ET means?
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So here's the other thing. Okay. So we'll move to now another category, which is going to cause people
headaches.
To go, wow, okay, now I really don't know what's going on. The astral. The astral is the culmination of all thoughts that have ever been had by a species, okay? So if you think about every thought that every person's ever had
from the beginning,
it's the astral is the coalesced form of all of these thoughts. So every dream that you've had, every experience that you've had globally as a species is in the astral.
In frequency.
In frequency. So people go to sleep at night, and if their astral body shifts out of the physical into the astral, you can suddenly be dreaming of being abducted or dreaming of something, and it will be real. It will feel real. It will be real to you, because you are only reliving yet somebody else's experience.
Shall I tell them what happened to me?
Go for it.
Okay, so about 18 months ago, I was fast asleep, dreaming, and my dream state changed. And in the dream, I was very aware of my state changing, and I became aware of, like, asleep awake, that horrible in-betweeny state. But I knew exactly where I was. I had the sounds around me. Everything was as it absolutely should be. My eyes were open. Okay. So I was concerned. I was awake. Now, what happened next was there were 3 classic grey beings in the room. I couldn't see them, but I could physically feel them. One of them sat on my chest, and it felt like that I had somebody sat on my chest. I had one messing around my feet. And then one of them wiped their finger over my mouth and put this clear fluid over my mouth that went into my mouth.
Like an anesthetic or something.
Yeah. And the whole time this is going on, there's a boom, boom, boom noise, horrendous noise. It was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Okay. So all of that was going on. Now, when this clear fluid went into my mouth, I started choking and coughing. And in that act, I managed to gain some sense of movement, because I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. But in that moment, it triggered me out of the paralysis, and I rolled off the bed onto the floor. Now, when I hit the floor, I suddenly woke up or came round, and I was in bed perfectly fine, apart from the fact my heart was racing 100 miles an hour. I sat that, you know, bolt upright going, what the just happened, you know. I knew at the time of this experience happening that it wasn't, there was something not right about it, but I couldn't put my finger on it at the time because I was far too busy trying not to, you know, die of terror, you know, because it was horrible. But we knew that we knew it wasn't a real abduction. We knew it was an astral experience, because when I rolled off the bed and hit the floor, I woke up instantly, and I was not off the floor. I was fine. I was absolutely fine. And we spoke to the Zetas about this, and they basically allowed me to have that experience so I could experience the difference between this astral, somebody else's abduction. So somebody else in the world went through that.
Yeah, physically went through
it. It actually happened. Yet I experienced it like a living memory. It was that living memory was overlaid onto my consciousness, and I went through it as if it was happening to me in absolute real time, physically, the whole lot, you know. So these astral experiences are incredibly deceptive, and how somebody would be able to tell the difference. If I hadn't hit the floor and woken up and realized I was never on the floor, I would never have believed in a million years that that was an astral experience.
Yeah, because
you could not say anything to me to make me believe it.
Because you were actually living somebody else's experience.
Yeah, there's just nothing anybody could say to me would make me go, that wasn't real, if I hadn't have hit the floor. So these astral experiences are incredible in their own right, you know.
But the other thing is, and I just noticed there was a comment that said I came back with an implant after an astral. That's actually what we're about to talk about next.
That's the next thing.
Is that, of course, there's what are the types of abductions that people could experience. And so back in the past, people would be taken physically and have scoop marks. And if you have a look at MUFON's trigger list, then what will happen is you'll see that there's hundreds of things on it. And I've actually got a copy of it here. And, you know, you could just about sit there and just go, yeah, tick, tick, you know, tick. But a lot of people had scoop marks and stuff. So when you were having a contact, you generally have a physical type experience, you know, the red grid phenomenon, different scoop marks and all those sorts of things. But then what happened was the extraterrestrials moved on to etheric contact.
Yeah.
So now they're talking to you in consciousness via your dream states and in the astral and these types of things. And what happens is that there are races that will embed technology into the etheric body for various reasons, and some of them may or may not be nefarious. So that's up to them and you as well, and your reasons for wanting contact as well. And what was it we were listening to where people were saying that so many people want contact that it actually causes problems? Oh, it was the Zetas that said
it. Was the Zetas.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
You were listening to your own recording last night.
I was listening to the Zetas talking, and they said that what happens is a person fears to have an abduction experience.
Yeah, they're in fear of
They're in fear of being abducted. And then what happens is that fear, that fabric of that fear actually creates the phenomenon for them to actually have an abduction experience.
Unfortunately.
And the abduction experience is based in fear because that's the level of contact that they expected for themselves.
Yeah.
And that shows you that if you want to have good positive contact, that's evidence that when you're doing CE5, you do it at the best and highest possible motives with love and communicative
if you're
processes.
Fearful of it in any way, don't do it. Just don't put yourself in that position. It's not worth it. You know, when we teach mediumship and we teach people how to reach their race, we say if you're in fear of the consequences
Just
of contact, this is not for you. You know, regardless of whether it's ET or spirit people. As I said, spirits were people once. They were nice people and they're not nice people, and you know, you want to be on the right vibrational level as the nice people.
Okay, next category.
This is the complicated one.
This is the complicated. So you can see we've mentioned 45 things so far. We're just talking about phenomenon. So how anybody's going to work out what's really going on can be quite difficult. This is why these MUFON and the rest of them do surveys, and they get people to check off all of their, to see if there's some level of comparative information that has been gained by other people. So I'll give you an example. There's been a survey that was done of 300 people of abduction. And from that, they came up with a list of commonalities amongst abductees. And when a person looks at that, and if you are honest with yourself, you could probably have a cognitive understanding that you actually understand what's taking place. But the issue is, if you've got screen memories, and say like a type A screen memory, and that's meant to produce missing time, you can't tick that box because you don't remember that you've had it.
Yeah.
So you're not conscious of it. That's the issue.
Yeah. And I would suggest, and I believe the Zetas have said, that is the situation of most contact, is people just don't know anything about it because of these unretrievable memories that have been hidden there. They're absolutely hidden behind technology.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
So the last section is classical physical abduction events. So what I just described in the astral, only actually happening, not an astral experience.
But now we're coming down to the real deal.
Yeah, there is a question from Gavin there. Maybe we should just quickly.
Can you please
do that
a summary of the difference of consciousness, astral, etheric body, and point of origin? Okay. Firstly, point of origin is work that's done by us with the Zetas to ascertain somebody's point of origin prior to physical incarnation. That's very complicated because if a person is an extraterrestrial and the extraterrestrial has only provided a portion of their consciousness to the human experience, the extraterrestrial could still be living on planet, performing their functions and tasks, but also living as a human as well. So there's categories of hybrid human as well. That's the other thing.
We talk about, if you look on our website, we've actually got a section called Point of Origin Hybrid Human, and we talk about that more, and there's information from the Zetas about that.
Enzo put up we've got an educational portal now, and we've actually got a free section on there for guests. So anybody can go there. And we've actually categorized a whole lot of experiencer information videos for people so that people can start to have a look at and learn about what contact is rather than getting it off Twitter and social media and all these sorts of things. So the thing is with the classical physical abduction events, that a person may be a hybrid and be believing that they're being abducted, but actually they're being visited. And I went through this myself. I just put out a book called The Hive Mind. And I believed initially that I was actually being abducted for many, many years, only to come to the point where I realized that there was something else going on. And I decided to then really look into it. And I documented it. I documented the whole process, how I went from that situation through to being able to talk to them very clearly, which has been quite good. The other one is that you have a contact with a nefarious race, and that could be one of the 63 grey races. So it's one race out of 63.
But I mean, there are other races.
But there are other races, of
misbehave.
course.
Reptilians are, notorious for it.
Unbelievable. Although, if you've got a reptilian guide, and you've verified that and you've evidenced it, and you've got a lot of good stuff going on around you, that also means that you can't just say that all races are bad, because they're not. Yeah. And all individuals within a race are bad, and that's not true at all. So it can be that you have a guide of a specific race, and that specific guide is really good as well.
So maybe we should just talk a little bit more about the Zetas in terms. I mean, you just very quickly glossed over it there, but
okay, you can do that.
So people call the Greys. We call the Greys the Zetas because they're from the Zeta Reticulum. there are actually 63 species of them. That it's not just one now, but one of them is naughty. We call them the abductors. So when we talk about the Zetas,
naughty,
we talk about 62 of those races, and then there's the abductors. Now they're not, although the other 62 races, they all work together. They work together, a cohesive unit. They respect free will, and anything that happens with them is done by prior agreement, whether unfortunately you remember that or not. Now the abductors don't abide by free will at all. They seek to mimic the processes of the other species. I've got it confused.
Races.
But they seek to mimic it. And so when you're actually trying to, if you don't have those kind of clarifications, when you're trying to work out who's who in this game, it can be very, very difficult.
Okay, and then of course you've got the astral and dream event experience, and you've described that before as a context scenario. So here we go. What's a classic abduction experience? There is no classic abduction experience. That's the problem. If you were talking 30 years ago, you'd say that a craft comes, somebody's floated out of the bed, concrete wall, on board a craft, and then they're being strapped to a table or whatever. These days, it's all over the place, and it's obfuscation, basically. It's there's so many people being contacted.
The way in which the ET contact humans has changed dramatically since the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s. When you think about it, you just really don't hear about the Whitley Strieber events, even your events. You don't hear about the Rendlesham type events. We do get mass school sightings, but not recently. It's all like 20 years ago now, isn't it?
Well, they've got new methods for contact now. They don't really, although they do bring craft in it, they've got to the point where they're able to contact a lot of the human race in the etheric and via the astral and the dream states.
And they sought to do that because when they originally came, they didn't realize the effect they'd have on people. They had no idea. Why would they? They're alien. They didn't know that it would cause trauma. They didn't know it would cause distress. They tried their best to introduce themselves in ways that humans could understand. Unfortunately, those ways were completely misunderstood by the humans.
Look at Gary Nolan. Now, Gary Nolan's having to do work with pilots in regards to what takes place when they go near craft and what physical damage could be associated with that in their physical structure. And so why would a race, if they know that they are damaging you, if you go near a craft, you get burnt or you get psychologically damaged or whatever, even at a cellular level, why would they keep coming that way if they know that they're damaging a species? They would then devise a different method. And if that method means that when they come, they don't cause those issues with the person, then of course they're going to come that way a lot.
And that's exactly what's happened.
And so that's what's going on. And the thing is with a lot of their visitation these days, it's based around categories of screen memories. And so we'll go through those. And we've done this before, but it's really important to understand. Category A is an unretrievable memory, which is based around missing time events. You're driving along, next thing you know, 2 hours is gone. And you're only 5 minutes down the road and you're wondering what's going on. That's a missing time event, and that's a screen memory. B is a narrative. The narrative could be you're flying a craft, you're being taught to fly a craft. You're
holding a baby.
You're looking out the window of a craft at the earth.
You're having a tour of the craft.
That's another thing. So that's what's called a narrative. Class B narrative. Now, Class C narrative is where it's got a time release mechanism. You're just standing one day and 20 years later, all of a sudden the screen memory drops and you go, oh no, I remember this.
Yeah, I've
And
had
it's
multiple.
clarity, full clarity.
And it is when the plaster gets ripped off. Oh my God!
Yeah.
It's like you suddenly. It's not like remembering. Oh yeah, I did go to the shops last Saturday. It's you suddenly relive
Realised. Yeah.
everything like you were there. It's like your life had been put on pause, and then somebody's pressed the play button, and you go through everything, the emotion, everything. I'd liken it probably to what PTSD is like.
We do online courses, Lila, is it?
Hang on, I can't see.
Down there.
Oh yeah. God, my eyes are
We
so
do, we
bad.
do online training. You just
Yeah.
contact us, and we run classes online
Yeah.
on how to do lots of different things: mediumship, energy work, Reiki.
Or we're in Sydney next month.
ET contact.
In fact, we're in Sydney in 2 weeks.
We're in Sydney in 2 weeks running workshops.
Yeah.
And we're also speaking at a UFO conference.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. Where the speakers,
website. If you go to events, on website, you'll see all the live stuff we're doing. And there's a link to the teachings that we do as well on the website.
Category D, we are getting there. Category D, hybrid training in a synthetic quantum environment.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. If you're a hybrid and you're being trained by them, have fun with that. It's going to be very, very interesting. I was thinking about this last night. People that are being trained and that are hybrids will be really going through it in a big way.
Yep.
In a big way. That's the other thing. And E is probably one of the most difficult ones to recognize, apart from A, because these are called constructs. They're situational obfuscations, things like owls, deers, clowns, and rabbits, etc. Now, we've given you 5 categories, but guess what? Here you go. You've got missing time. So you've got a category A screen memory. Next thing you know, in the same contact event, you now have a narrative where you're holding a baby. Yep. So you've now got a class A and B.
Yep.
20 years later, you remember in that missing time event where you were holding a baby that something else happened.
Yep.
That screen memory drops off.
Yeah.
You've now got overlaid screen memories, and people honestly believe that somehow by going and getting some sort of hypnotherapy that you're going to be able to unpick that situation.
If they don't want you to know what's happened,
it's never
nothing is going to shift it.
Yeah,
absolutely nothing.
Yep.
Only they can shift it.
Yeah, and the thing is, yes, we know that people do therapy and they have the narrative, but the thing is, honestly, they don't know if they're repeating the narrative, which screen memory they're repeating, or whether they're actually repeating their experience.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's like layers of an onion.
It's layers and layers and layers and layers. And the more that people try to unpick the story, the more information seems to come out. It's pretty interesting. What's Oak's comment? What's happening when the ETs are contacting humans while they are in the etheric states? First, how they used to contact them physically. So I know, waiting for them to sleep.
Yeah. I know so many experiences of waiting.
Well, when I was taken in the past, they'd come into the house and I'd basically get either walk onto craft or there'd be a physical fight. Yeah. And anybody that's older that's had these sorts of contact situations, you would have had a physical struggle with extraterrestrials as they tried to drag you out onto craft.
Yeah.
The other one would be that then, you have an etheric contact where they wait for you to go to sleep. And then, of course, you're not having the physical fight anymore.
Yeah.
Now, you may wake up with the red grid phenomenon or some sort of etheric, some sort of scoop marks or physical marks or whatever.
Yeah.
But what you didn't have to go through was the psychological process of actually being dragged out of the house. The other thing is that probably the scoop marks are a lot smaller than what they were. You weren't burnt because a lot of the old contactees were always burnt after contact. There's actually pictures of a guy on his chest. He's got all these burn marks. He was in hospital with them as well.
I guess, look, having if you have had an astral event or an etheric event, and these things are so similar, to try and if you wake up with a physical mark on you, then you know that it is a genuine contact. Look at
Adato's down there. Adato says,
hang on, I can't read it.
Down the bottom.
Not that one.
No, down there.
Hang on, I think it very often prior to start sleeping, laying down and have a very clear sensation of something walking around the room. That could be the start of an astral travel experience.
But it could be spirits.
It could be spirits.
So we had somebody yesterday say that to us, and that the spirit was looking like something else. And we said, well, that's because spirits don't want to scare you. So, I mean, it can also be lots of things. It can be something manifesting through the astral fabric, because the astral's much closer to your physical consciousness than it used to be. The more and more people that are open to the discussion, the more that the astral fabric is able to interweave itself into people's daily lives, talking about distortions coming through people's environments, seeing waves of energy come through, or feeling and sensing waves of energy as well. I guess basically all we're trying to say is, in this hour that we've been talking, think about everything.
Think outside the box.
Think outside the box.
Just because you're feeling fear doesn't mean it's extraterrestrial.
It could be spirit. It could be anything.
An earthbound spirit is you can feel fear. Astral entities cause fear. So many different things can cause fear. And guess what? That all happens when you're asleep. All happens as you're getting tired. As your own awakened conscious state starts to drop into a lower level. That's when we become susceptible to these things. And so just because you've woken up and you feel like there's something in your room, don't automatically assume it's an extraterrestrial.
I would suggest also that a lot of people do need to seek medical advice as well.
Absolutely.
Qualified medical advice, that you go and see somebody who's a mental health professional and you talk to them about it and get them to give you some sort of clarity around that situation.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. I don't mean to. Lila is making a really good point. Sometimes it's real people astraling.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've had people.
I've had people astraling.
Try and sneak into this house, and they get booted out.
I just I can see them and I go, hey, listen, you're astraling. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ring you up on your phone.
It's quite funny.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Anyway, don't worry about that. So as you can see, you can have multiple screen memories, multiple constructs. There's a mishmash between whether it's spirit people, ET.
You've got spirit pretending to be ET pretending to be spirit people.
You've also got multiple consciousness using the phenomenon. Now, that's what we haven't spoken about, clearly, is the phenomenon. With extraterrestrials, the phenomenon travels with them. If an extraterrestrial comes into a house, around them will be a frequency, and it'll generally be like an anesthetic to a human. And the person will start to feel different, maybe want to fall asleep, these types of things. Just because you want to fall asleep doesn't mean that there's an ET. It's a different thing.
Tell you what is an ET in the house, like cups and plates falling off shelves, objects being moved around.
That can be spirits though.
But it's more likely to be spirits. If you've got activity in your house related to earthly objects, human objects, it's highly unlikely to be related to extraterrestrials. They're really not interested.
I think I can tell you how you know you're being contacted, right? You walk outside and there's a craft sitting there.
That'll do.
And there's a sign that says, follow us. That's how you know you're being contacted.
You've got two choices: walk out, or we're going to black you out.
Or we'll float you out through the wall.
I've had that. That was something else. Anyway.
That's called, by the way, that process is called matter through matter. And spirit people have been doing that process for thousands of years.
I knew a medium who would be locked in one room, he would be in his chair, literally chained to the chair, and they would still put him through the wall.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
Spirit do apportation, asports. They do lots of
They
different
can make
things.
objects appear
And
out of
disappear.
nowhere,
Yeah.
and they can physically move objects that exist.
Yeah.
So spirit people are very, very clever.
Oh,
very
absolutely.
clever.
And they've got access to this physical because they were here once. They know how to interact from their side of life to this side of life. And so this is why we did this video, because we feel that people need to understand that there are a myriad of phenomenon. And we're just trying to say to people, just think about it.
Stop, take a step back,
and think about
put the common sense hat back on, and have a really good look around outside the "you must be an ET abductee" experience and box for your answers.
Yeah. All right.
There is just one last little question.
Oh yeah, deja vu. So okay, with deja vu, I want you to imagine that you are at the Olympics, and you know the big circular running tracks, and there's a starting person there, and another one there, and another one there.
Staggered.
But they're all you, and you're the only runner on the track. And so you bang, start to go, and everybody's running around the tracks. It's what's called an asynchronous environment. And each of those starting points is a timeline that you're on, or a frequency. Some of the runners run faster than others. And so as they run past each other, because this person was in front, you will be experiencing what that person experienced previously. And you could even talk to yourself at that point. So when you're having a deja vu experience, you are very, very close to your other self or other selves.
But just for
that split seconds or the 30 seconds that it is, and you could develop contact. I know this sounds crazy. You could develop contact with yourself on another timeline.
Do you reckon it'd be possible to swap places with that person in that instant?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that sounds all right. Yeah, so would you have to wait?
Won't talk
would
about
you
that.
have to wait for another deja vu moment to swap back?
To swap back, yeah.
How interesting is that?
Timelines are so interesting. If you're on the wrong timeline, there's so many symptoms that would be taking place to a person and the reason we don't talk about this is because if someone then contacts and says this is happening, we're able to then go, okay, well, we know what this is. Whereas if you just say it and then people go, oh, this happened to me, you're going, oh, I don't know whether you see.
It's very interesting. All right. That's
That's it.
Any last questions about anything on topic before we
go?
Are we all good?
Right. So we're all good.
We're
all right. Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming along this morning.
Yeah.
And thank you to the people looking after the chat room. Enzo, thanks for those links.
For the mods.
And thanks for the caps locks.
So I'm going to do it. I'm going to say subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
If you want to, you can add yourself to our mailing list, and that's on our website. So we do mail outs.
Yeah. If you're in Australia, then we're doing the sittings down in Sydney in a fortnight's time. So go and have a look at the website for that. And maybe we'll meet some of you. That would be nice.
That'd be great.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Time for a coffee, I reckon.
Coffee.
Time for coffee.
So what is it? We're going to do a countdown. 3, 2, 1.
Bye. Oops. And 0, -1.
And 0, -1.